All right. Do I have like 2 minutes? I'm gonna go grab a drink
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah,
drank
good.
my whole drink.
Go ahead. What does the X stand for in NASCAR Xfinity Series? It stands for Xfinity. It's crazy. Oh, I got a good trick question. Carl, who would you think is the oldest driver when it comes to these races?
Oh man, I bet you I know. I'm gonna say one of the Arboros. How old was Mario when he won?
Holler podcast. I'm joined by two similar guys. Someone's missing. I think he's lost somewhere in the middle of Florida. Not sure where, but we've got some new things going on tonight. We've got our good friend Robert Moyer producing in the background for us, so things are going to be a little bit different as compared as they used to be. But we get to focus a little bit more on the driving side of things. But I've got Carl and Adam with me tonight. Adam, we're going to start with you since you're still technically a guest. It's a loose term at this point, but
It's very loose.
how are you doing tonight, Adam?
I am doing great. Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here. It's a good week to be on the podcast.
Very true, and thank you for being here, Carl. How are you doing tonight?
I'm here. I'm tired. I've been up since about 5 this morning with the baby, so I'm looking forward to my pillow here in a little bit. Hopefully.
That's what happens when you have kids, I guess.
Yeah, that's what they say.
I'm getting used to this. This is going to take some getting used to of not being able to see y'all while doing this. So it is a little bit of delay on our end.
I am also struggling with it, to be totally honest. It's just a little odd.
Yeah,
we'll power through it though.
Yes, we will power through it indeed.
The podcast looks good though. I like our little number graphics in the corners.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun revamping all that because the stuff that we had at the beginning of the season was not my favorite work, if I'd be honest. But we've got a lot to cover tonight, and like I said, Richard is missing this evening. He's currently in Daytona for the 24-hour this weekend, living it up with Rev, I'm pretty sure. But want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, obviously. Butt Kicker, the leader in haptics, Sundance Pizza, Ideal Lease, Ascendance Trucks, RevSimShop.com, Maddox Graphics. Am I missing anyone? Advanced GG, and the promo code for Advanced GG to get 10% off your order, and those proceeds go to fund the league. Is WolfX Live 10. So feel free to use that and support us. But trying to think anything else we need to cover. It's weird that I have free time to actually think right now. No, well, let's just get right into it. So this past week we were at Chicagoland for the K1 Speed 250, and no one else other than Mason Hausman got his third win of the year. Big congrats to Mason. It was a great job, great performance for him. Those kind of tracks, Kansas, Chicagoland, and similar shaped tracks, Mason is just so quick on and so tough to beat. So just got to give him some props there. Carl, take us through your race. There was a lot of differences between this race that we had and races that we've had previously this season.
You know, I guess this is a good race to have because it kind of went by my own schedule. I qualified terrible, struggled to get to the top 10 for points, and then just finished outside of the top 10. Overall, it was nice. A late stage caution kind of messed up my my long run there. We actually had green flag pit stops in the third stage, so that was exciting to have. But yeah, I think that really hurt me because I do like to conserve, I like to save, and I was in a really good spot to make some moves in that last 15 laps, and after that caution, that restart could never get going again. It was tough for me, but overall, I was happy with the race, happy with what I saw on the broadcast when I watched it back too. It was fun to see.
You bring up watching it again on the broadcast. It was really good to see the amount of racing and the intensity of the racing that we had with very limited incidents. It was very refreshing coming from this league for this season, at least. In seasons past, we've had very competitive races without incidents, but we hadn't yet had that this season. And I would have to think some of the rule changes came into play there. Let me know if y'all think differently, but I think getting rid of a fast repair really made people check themselves.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, in theory, you can call it a fluke because we haven't had a second race like that yet. But if you just take this season in a vacuum and just the quality of racing we've had, the amount of yellows we've had, all the different issues, and then you take this race as a sample of that same vacuum, I mean, it's not even comparable. The level of awareness, I saw guys that last week with a fast repair probably would have made a move that they didn't make this week. You know what I mean? I saw guys back out of stuff going into corners, which we haven't seen much of this season. I I think between the fast repair not being there and the penalty ladder being steeper, that drive through, man, that hits a lot different than an EOL. You know, an EOL, if you're fast enough, it's going to affect you, but it's not going to affect you to the point where it could possibly take you out of the race. And with the way we were having those long runs, it was very possible that if you got a drive through, you weren't going to recover from that. And even if you don't take this season into account, it was just a good race. I think I said that in general at one point. It wasn't just a good race for season 3. That was just a good race. And we managed to have a little bit of late race drama thrown in there. So it had a little bit of everything. Had strategy, had, you know, the late race restart, had great battles. So I couldn't be happier about it.
Yeah, it was arguably one of the best, if not the best. It's right up there with our races of all time in the BRB specifically. There was a lot of competition up front. There was no one that ran away with it. I have it up here somewhere of how many drivers led laps. I think it was around 7 or 8.
There
8
were
different
quite a
guys.
few, yeah.
And there wasn't. I mean, yes, Mason did lead the most by a pretty solid margin, but there were 7 or 8 guys battling with him all night. Someone I want to point out right away. I saw he had speed from the get-go, and that's Patrick Hernandez. Congratulations to him. It was great to see him run how he used to run, I think. Going back to season 1 and even season 2, Patrick was one of those top guys. He had speed everywhere we went, and this season it just had not worked for him. But I hope that helps turn it around for him this season.
Yeah, I think 8th place for that 91 car is a breath of fresh air. You know, not only for him but for the league, because we know he was struggling there for a minute. I think he was questioning whether or not he wanted to come back and, you know, continue finishing this season, because it's been a tough one for him. But I think a good, strong, healthy top 10, because he got a ton of bonus points. He got 15 bonus points, I think, through stages and leading some laps. So that's a really solid outing by Patrick Hernandez the other night. It's a good way to put together a whole race. I need to take some notes.
Definitely.
Yeah, he did great, man. I was super impressed. It was very refreshing to see him run up front and not kind of either take himself out of the race or get taken out of the race. It was I was super happy for him. I mean, you could tell that he felt good after that race, and that's what it's all about. So
it was a breath of fresh air for him, I'm sure. And I was a little worried in the beginning when I saw him climb from, I think he started 20th. Yeah, that's why I show it. Starting
he was
20th,
back
and
there.
he came up to top 3 within, it felt like 10 laps maybe.
I don't even know if it was 10 laps, man.
It
I
was
mean,
quick.
we talked about it in the Discord and in the
Yep.
team chat. He wasn't there, and then he was there. So it
Yeah, and he
happened
was
quick.
breathing down our necks before we even knew it, and I thought he was going to burn his tires off and start falling back, but it never really happened. I really didn't get to see that out of many, if any, drivers all night. I didn't see tires getting worn off and completely falling off the pace. I don't know if that was a case in other parts of the field, but it
Yeah,
was really interesting.
it felt like to me, at least, you know, running up in the top 5 for the most part of the night, it didn't being conservative didn't seem to have as big of an impact as I thought it would. It kind of seemed like everybody's tires, regardless of how hard they pushed, kind of fell off to the same degree to a point. Really late in the run, you could tell who had the best tires under them. You and Mason stood out to me, obviously. But yeah, tire fall off wasn't as much as I remember for Chicagoland, at least personally.
Well, and it's weird you saying that, because I don't feel like I ever. Usually in most races, there's a point where I'm really saving and not pushing. And there were points in this race where I was being smart, I guess, and not going for positions I didn't need to go at the time. But I would say I was aggressive on the tires from the get-go. And usually that comes back to haunt you. But what I learned during the practice race is it didn't really matter. You could push it during that whole time, and it just didn't give up, it felt like.
I feel like part of it was the car setup, at least in my opinion. I think the car setup from the get-go was tight, as opposed to a looser setup. So we were working off of a tighter baseline to begin with. So I'm not sure if maybe that had something to do with how it felt, but
I feel
I
like
don't know.
further on in the pack, it was a little more difficult. The dirty air, you couldn't get the front end to turn as much. I know I kind of resorted to kind of starting really high and arcing it and doing a really entry out just to help rotate the car, use the track to help turn me. That's the struggle with being in the top 5 versus being in the back 15 it's just so much different in the aerodynamics and how the car handles. I know if I push it hard, especially if I was getting in battles, I know Brendan and I battled hard. We caught a little bit of camera action. I know he had to wheel it there in turn 3 for a minute, but I know that was tough. Once you started battling and you push it a little hard, once that tire got warm, it was almost really difficult to recover without losing a ton of time. And that was just the disruption in the air. And I think there's the difference between running in the top 10 versus again or running in the top 5 really versus running 12, 13, 14 back on.
And you bring up the dirty air. The dirty air was a really big factor. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like, surprisingly so at Chicagoland in this car. But it really made it difficult to turn in certain times when there's guys going 2 or 3 wide for a couple rows in front of you. But again, I just think it speaks to how great of a race it was. We had battles like that going on consistently all night, and 4 cautions, 2 for incident.
Like
I believe
that.
so, yeah.
That's amazing. That's the kind of product we want, and that's what we got. And I don't know if it's just because we ran into a perfect combination with the track and the conditions, or if people are really focused on it. But I guess we'll see here in the coming weeks of how that goes. I do want to go into some things that we probably don't necessarily want to talk about, but we gotta talk about because they happened. So I don't remember what lap it was. It was during the first stage. Um, there was an incident in the race control booth, um, and Zachary Branfold incidentally or accidentally uh, got booted from the server. He was running 8th at the time and was completely booted and couldn't come back into the server because he was accidentally booted. After discussing with the admins, it was decided to give him as finishing 8th place, since that's where he was running. He didn't get any stage points or any additional bonuses because of that. But after some deliberation, it was determined that that was the most fair outcome, and that is going to be the president going forward. If a similar situation happens, and unfortunately, it does tend to happen once a season, it seems like, just because we are all human and iRacing is iRacing and doesn't let people join again or let us fix it in the moment. But did just want to give everyone an update on that.
Yeah, and just to clarify on that, we did give him 8th place points, but nobody else lost points. So the guy who finished 8th in the race still got 8th in the race and was awarded those points. We didn't award stage points, and we didn't bump anybody down or reduce anybody's points. That was just the best way we could think to go about doing it. And like Steven mentioned, going forward, hopefully, it doesn't happen again, but if it does, that's the precedent. So that was the best thing we could come up with to kind of make it right. Zach didn't do anything wrong. So it's not fair that his season should suffer because of it. It's just one of those deals, unfortunately.
Exactly. And another thing during the race, so we had 2 incidents, like we said. Since we only had 2 incidents, we can actually cover both cautions. Unlike we've never been able to do that before.
I'm so excited.
We'll start it off with so on lap 12, it looked like Coulter Clark kind of ran out of room, running the bottom side underneath Jared Hughes, and got up into Jared, and they both wreck. I think Jared got into Isaiah and then into the wall, which those 3 cars became damaged. But then the person that's missing from the podcast, I don't know if his brake pedal broke. I don't know if he just didn't know what was going on, but it was one of the most aggressive ARCA brakes I've seen. I'm just giving him a hard time, but Richard comes in and cleans out Jared, and it ended Jared's race. I know he had a meatball, and then when he got to this pit stall, they said it's too much damage for them to fix. So Jared was feeling it from the beginning of we got rid of the fast repair in the first race, 12 laps in, he can't do anything. I think Richard also disconnected from the race a lap after, or so.
He did. He
Yeah.
committed murder and then fled the state.
Yes.
Yeah, after y'all have gotten time to see the incidents, right? What are y'all's thoughts?
You know, so when the incident happened, he was kind of confused on why Jared didn't hold the brakes up there. And I will give a hint of credit to Richard. I watched the playback and watched the replay. Jared didn't start holding the brakes and locking it down until he was already halfway through into the track. I think there is a little area there where he could probably have held the brakes there and he wouldn't have come down the track. But on the same time, he did, and Richard should have been off the throttle. He should have already, because they showed the cockpit replay, and you can see the smoke on the right side. You can also see his tachometer still increasing, even though the smoke is in that windshield. So it's like, usually about that time you want to let off, and just in case someone does roll down, you have a little bit of interest. At least you don't get the ARCA break of the week. But here we are.
So
I will. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Adam, please.
I have a very different opinion than Carl. I give no grace to Richard. I watched that back a couple times, and even if Jared didn't hold the brake immediately, Rich he could have slid the whole way down the racetrack. But if Richard would have lifted sooner, he would have not ran into him.
In general,
I mean, I watched it back on the broadcast. That's the first time I saw it was on the broadcast. Into Pit Stop's credit, they didn't shy away from.
No, it was awesome.
They didn't shy away from the coverage. I'll say that. And it was just it was bad, man. You know what I mean? We talk about ARCA braking all the time, and there was a lot of smoke too. That was what stood out to me. It wasn't one of those deals where it kind of sneaks up on you and you can almost justify the ARCA brake. Like, sure, the yellow was on your screen, but you didn't see anything, so you didn't brake. But I'm not gonna hold Jared at fault at all for this one. I gotta put that one on Richard. Unfortunately, I love him, but my man was going. He was gonna pass that one car that was involved and that he could get the position on. So
Yeah, and Brendan's saying that he's seen the data and that Jared was on the brakes, and I would think Jared was on the brakes too. I think it was just the situation that he was in with Isaiah on the wall, and then it just shot him back down the track. But like you said, Adam, if he just got off the gas or got on the brakes a little bit early, all could have been avoided. I think that's a learning lesson for a lot of people, especially without fast repairs now. You don't have that get out of jail free card. If you see smoke, get off that gas. It's better to be safe than get wrecked, I guess, essentially.
Well, and I think the incident kind of proved itself. Is we had an incident, before halfway through of the stage, all right, and then our second incident was until the last 15, 16 laps of the race. So I think there was some kind of wake up call says, oh, by the way, 2 drivers are now out that were fast because of the lack of the fast repair. So I think that changed a little bit of the perception and the attitude moving forward with the race.
I would agree. It definitely was a shock in the moment. We just need that shock maybe every week, I guess. So maybe expect a wreck around lap 10 or 15 each week, and then we'll calm down from there. But like we said, Isaiah was unfortunately involved in that, and that got him 22 laps down from the get-go, and was just uncoverable from there. Unfortunately, Isaiah came home in 26, which hurt him in the points a little bit, but he definitely had the speed. He was racing up there with the leaders at one point. I've heard a lot of different things about it this week. It's been another hot topic, but I mean,
well,
at the
Steven,
end of the day,
I have a feeling that was one of those situations where it affected you directly because you were in the lead and he makes that pass on you. And we talked about that dirty air. And then not, 3 laps later, here comes Mason when you had a good rhythm going. Did that affect your race? Did that have an overall, effect on your tires? Do you think something played out different that could have not have been there if Isaiah wasn't at that point at that time?
I mean, sure, I guess. But like at the time, like I wasn't I wasn't bothered by it or in the slightest. I guess the only thing running through my mind, I didn't know how far back Isaiah was. I knew he was laps down. I didn't know how many. I thought he was 1 lap down. So in my head, I was like, well, I kind of got to race him because I don't want him getting back on the lead lap. But then when I found out he was 20 odd laps down, I was like, I'm just going to let him go, and then I'll use his draft in first or second and being there. I didn't have a problem, honestly, with him being up there. I think he raced Mason and I specifically with a lot of integrity and a lot of respect. I don't think he put us in situations where we were in danger. So I think it all depends of how you do race. If you're going to be doing that, you have to be extra vigilant of how you are racing the leaders if you're 22 laps down. I don't have a problem if you have the speed to get up there. But if you cause a problem, it's going to be a big problem magnified because you're that many laps down.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't talked super openly in the Discord about it. Obviously, I talked to you guys in the admin chat about it, but and everybody has different feelings about this kind of stuff, but my personal opinion is it doesn't matter to me if you're 1 lap down or 50 laps down, at least for this purposes of what we're doing here. I had made the comment to you guys, everybody pays the same amount of money to be here, and puts in the time. So he has just as much of a right to exist in a space on the racetrack as another car. Would I have been racing the leaders like that 23 laps down? No, but that's just me. I also don't win 3 races this season, so gather from that what you will. But in my opinion, he has a right. You can't be mad at a car for existing in a spot if he's not directly harming you purposefully. But the example I used is, what Chase Elliott did to Kevin Harvick at Bristol after they had contact and Chase was multiple laps down, and he went out of his way to make sure Harvick couldn't get good runs out of the corner, and so he could, and eventually my boy Larson brought home the dub. So thanks, Chase Elliott. But that's my take on it. Do I think it was necessary or even advisable? No, but I also don't inherently see anything wrong with doing it. That's just my take on it. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, but as far as enforcing that from like a rules standpoint, there's really nothing we can do. I mean, because you can't make a rule that says, well, if you're 3 laps down, it's okay, but if you're 4 laps down, then it's not okay. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So
what happens if you're 3 laps down at Martinsville is completely different than 3 laps down at Texas?
Right, exactly. So it's not something that is enforceable from a rules standpoint. It's not going to be something admins get involved in unless it's a situation like I just mentioned where they're literally going out of their way to affect the outcome of the race. It's just something that has to be, on track. It just has to be a mutual respect kind of thing. Respect from the lap car to do his best to not screw up a leader, and leaders mutual respect to the lap car that it exists and it's allowed to exist on the racetrack.
It exists unless it's Gray Walker, apparently.
Why is that?
I gave Gray a little scare at one point during the green flag cycle. He cycled out to be the leader because he hadn't pitted yet, and after pitting, I was in front of Mason by about a second, and was catching up to those leaders that hadn't pitted yet, and I closed in really quick on Gray, and then got under him, I think in 3 or 4, and bumped him up the track a little bit, and he was not very happy at the time. But I was like, I need to get going. Mason's coming, and I can't let him get any closer.
I saw that. I was right behind you.
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
I was right behind you when it happened.
Like, I mean, watching back, I did hit him more than I thought I did. In the moment, I thought I had just enough to squeeze by. And I'm glad he didn't get wrecked from it. But
man, that's just racing sometimes, though. I also had a moment like that. It didn't involve me directly, but I was running down Brendan, and Brendan was racing Patrick really, really hard, and he just couldn't. By the way, Patrick, Ryan Newman of the week, because that dude, managed to take up 4 lanes without blocking. Like I don't know if he realized that the line he was running was like a perfectly defensive line, but it was. He wasn't running like the top. Towards the end of the runs, especially when I was running the wall, like I was ripping the wall. Patrick ran like a lane and a half, maybe a lane down from the wall. So you couldn't pass him on the outside, and he refused to go to the bottom. And towards the end of the race, it was hard to pass on the bottom unless you had a substantial speed advantage. Anyway, though, but Brendan was having a hard time getting around him, and he kind of self-cleared Patrick a little bit. I think kind of the same way you did with Gray, kind of ran him up the track a little bit. It wasn't egregious or anything like that. But you have to make those. That's a calculated risk. You know what I mean? And sometimes, especially in your situation where you were racing for the lead, and a guy like Mason's bearing down on you.
Yeah,
Sometimes
and I know he's coming.
You gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, and I think at the end of the day, it was kind of no harm, no foul. So
it definitely was, thankfully. But there was another incident that actually ended up bringing out a yellow, and that was with 12 or 13 to go, roughly.
It sure was.
And I don't know the exact scenario, what position was being battled for or anything. But it was between Zachary King and Cody Dorsey. Cody Dorsey was on the inside coming out of 4, and it looked like Zach tried to close the door a little too late. If that's different from y'all's view, please let me know. But that's what I saw roughly. And then Zach looked like he was trying to regather it, got into the wall, and then don't know if it broke loose or
Yeah. I mean, as far as go ahead, Carl.
Yeah, looking on the podcast, it did kind of look like there might have been some I don't know if there was just new tires, but the 88 of Dorsey looked like he dove it really hard into 3, and just maybe Zach wasn't expecting such a late lunge because it looked kind of late, and then there was the issue. Now Zach swerving left and right trying to gather, then ends up in the wall already across the start finish line. It's like usually you either wreck or save it before then. So that was definitely a new one that I almost died there because I'm just going around, no flag, and then Adam's yelling caution, the car on the track. I'm like, okay, cool, and there Zach is right there in front of me, and then the yellow comes out. I had to go up against the wall, and luckily there was no damage for either of us there. But man, that was a close call.
Yeah, as far as the initial incident goes, I kind of agree with Carl. It looks like, for whatever reason, Dorsey just had a really strong entry in. Zach kind of arced it into the apex a little late. Maybe not necessarily late, but Dorsey was definitely there already. And then from there, he drifts up into the wall, basically. He does a tail slide into the wall, which is totally understandable given what had happened. I don't think there was any way to avoid that. It was everything after that was a little odd. But regardless, a yellow came out, and it shook the race up a bit and gave us a little bit of drama there at the end. So
it definitely did lead to some drama because then it allowed people to get 2 tires, and not a lot of people learned how to drive it with 2 tires, I think, beforehand, but found out from the practice race that it was just as good. And it just led to, you never know what's going to happen. But Mason ended up being Mason and getting it done. Brendan brought up an interesting point I didn't know until earlier, of if Gray Walker didn't finish in the top 5, let's just remove him from the equation now. The top 5 would have been Mason, myself, Dustin, Brendan, and Adam, and those were also the top 5 in qualifying in that order, if that's how it played out.
Yeah, the broadcast brought that up too. On the it was. I think it actually, at one point when they brought it up, it wasn't at the finish of the race. It was, I think, during that last yellow they had mentioned it. I think it went all the way from 1st to 7th. I think, but regardless, it was at least the top 5, which we don't see that very often. It's very, very rare that you don't get moved around one way or the other. But it came to pass on Tuesday, which is super interesting. I can't remember a time where that's ever happened before. But I think green flag runs lend themselves to that outcome. You know what I mean? not always, because sometimes you have guys that are just really, really good at putting hot laps down and then fall off. But I pretty much ran. I mean, there were a couple moments where where I led some laps and was in second or third, but for the most part, I ran fifth pretty much all night. I ended up losing fifth on that restart and ended up sixth, but it was just,
Unacceptable.
I know, right? It's just it was one of those nights you were gonna run where you were gonna run. Obviously in the back of the pack it gets more hectic and there's more dirty air and things like that. But I one thing I will say though is this was not one of those races where, like, if you were in the top 5 or even the top 10, you were not safe per
Mm-mm.
se.
Oh
Like
no.
I was fighting, it was every single lap I was fighting somebody. Every single lap I was actively racing somebody, and it was so much fun. I can't remember the last time I had that much fun in a league race. So
No, it's not a very common situation. I think we might see a little bit of that next week too at Pocono, just because the pack stays together.
yep,
It's really
that's
hard to
fair.
break up, and we'll discuss it later, but that will also be really interesting. Just to see how we transition to that kind of style directly after this and no fast repairs. That's going to be a big topic for the rest of the season, just because it's uncharted territory for I think a lot of us. Of having to rewire our brains. Real quick, I'm going to run through the top 10 and then we can move on to the meatball of the week. So we had, like I said, Mason Houseman, myself, Dustin Stallings, Gray Walker, Brendan Maddox rounds out the top 5. Sixth, Adam Buzzio. Seventh, Johnny Wood Jr. Patrick Hernandez, 8th. Braxton Skinner with a big top 10. Shout out to Braxton in 9th. And then Zachary Maddox in 10th. Yeah, some great stuff there.
Shout out to Braxton for sure, and then shout out to Zach Maddox too.
No,
I
no shout
believe
out to
it.
Braxton. No, not Braxton.
Carl's upset. I'm still gonna give him a shout out. But shout out to Maddox too. I think he had made a comment. It's the first race of the season that he got a top 10, which seems
Yeah,
crazy to me. But he said it was the first race he didn't get wrecked and finish in the top 10. So shout out to him. He has speed every week, but has terrible luck. So
He has a second one. He's showing 2 top 10s. I wonder what that second
I
one was,
show
unless it was
1.
Atlanta. What am I looking at?
I don't know
Oh,
what you're looking
2
at. I
top
show
10s
1.
right there.
For Braxton Skinner, I got 1. 13%
Oh wait, are we talking
top 10
Braxton
rank.
Skinner or Zachary Maddox?
I was talking about Maddox.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Zachary Maddox has 2, and then yes,
Okay.
Braxton only has 1.
Got you. Misunderstood.
I apologize. He just clarified. He got a top 10 in Atlanta, but since Atlanta, which was our first race of the season, this was the first race he didn't
Wow.
have any incidents and have a top 10. So my shout out remains valid.
Well, all I'm going to say to that is I don't think many people had incidents this race. Well,
You know, I had 0 incidents until the last lap.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I-
So we had 19 people with 0 incident points.
I don't know if I had 0 or not. I feel like I got bumped
You
at
had
one
0.
point. Did I? Okay. There
You
was some
did.
rubbing. I wasn't sure if it led to a
Carl
0
did
or
get an
not.
off track.
At
Damn
the
it,
last
Carl.
lap, I was 0 until the last freaking
Damn it,
lap.
Carl.
I know, man, ridiculous.
No,
Go
that's
big or go
awesome.
home, Carl.
I'm
Robert,
gone,
if
done.
you can switch us over to the meatball of the week.
Ooh, meatball of the week. This will be fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. So we got the meatball of the week. There's a lot less options, I think, this week than previously. Adam, since you are our guest again, go ahead and start us off.
I'm gonna take the obvious one and go with Zach King. Just for not only causing the caution, but possibly making sure that the caution came out. So yeah, because Zach will get mine this week. And it's not targeting Zach. There's not a lot of people to. Actually, there is one other very specific person that I could have picked, and I have missed that opportunity. So I will pick Zach, and I'll pass it on to you guys.
Carl, I'll go ahead and let you go second here.
I told Braxton after the race, he spoke after the race, that he was my meatball, and he's. I feel like that was a bonehead move, whatever. But looking at the broadcast, I looked at it. I was like, okay, I can get it. He did block a little late, but being on 2 tires, I've done the same thing. So I'm gonna go easy on him. And I see your point, Adam, with Zach. I'm gonna actually put on the spot the guy who put him on the spot there, and Cody Dorsey. It just looked like a really
Oh,
weird wreck. I don't know if he was just trying to dive to the inside before Zach King crossed his nose or something. But really, if Dorsey would have shown just a little more patience during that situation, kind of gauged up how King was doing, I think we could have maybe avoided that entire caution, honestly. So I think that last minute caution that changed everything, especially for me. I had a solid 7th place, I think, but I'm just not good on the restart, so that hurt. So yeah, my meatball is going to go to Cody Dorsey.
I did not see
Interesting
that
pick.
coming.
I didn't see that coming either, man. I think I saw that coming less than the guy who Steven's going to give the meatball of the week to.
First, I want
If
to
I
say that
could-
Rev said Gavin Rogers is his meatball of the week.
Oh, I'm not gonna do Gavin like that.
But yeah, I couldn't do that to him. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I've got to pick. Oh, I can't type. Richard Wolsifer.
There we go. I alluded to it. It has become
And
truth.
I'm gonna make Richard also pick himself for now until next week.
Hey, he's not here to defend himself, so he's
No, that
Exactly.
meatball that stands. Award
So
Richard
yeah.
his own meatball.
I mean, taking out a teammate like that 12 laps in, Jerry took it like a champ, though. Is all I'm gonna say is
Man.
he was sad, but he was just like, it's unfortunate.
Yep. Seriously, shout out to Jared, because if that was me, I would have just been
I would have been in the chat.
dude,
in the race.
I would have reactivated the hauler, and I would have just been, and I would have been the only one with perms to use it. That's how mad I would have been. No, but seriously, Jared, he was shockingly calm. I don't know if Jared was just tired and he was like, I'm good. I don't know what happened.
I think he saw it as a week off at this point. It's like,
at that, I mean, I guess if it's gonna happen, let it happen on lap 12 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And be done with it. But yeah, he was, I mean, and I'm not even exaggerating, he was so calm in the chat. Like, he was like, oh, this sucks, can't fix it, I'm gonna go to bed. And we were like, okay,
took
man.
it really nice and took it really
Yeah,
well.
it was shockingly calm. I was almost worried for a minute. But yeah, shout out to Jared for just being, I wish I could put up the chill guy meme. But yeah,
I think
Jared,
Mason's getting upset with how many shout outs you have.
I will shout out everybody but Mason.
That's
And I
fair.
will,
Oh boy. Well, let us I'm gonna go ahead and go to our first trivia question of the night. Actually, I can just switch it over here. Let me just confirm. Yeah, our Rev Civ Shop trivia question of the week. Got 3 new questions for y'all this week. Trying to think. Yeah, let's just get started. I need to do less thinking.
Uh-oh. I think everyone's in trouble now.
That's true. All right, we're going off easy on the first one. First question is, in what year did NASCAR introduce the car of tomorrow? And your 3 answer choices are 2008, 2007, and 2009. And your 30 seconds begins now. Shout out for not getting any more shout outs. Well, y'all can't hear Robert, but Robert's wrong. You can't go 0 for 3. All right, we got a mix of questions. Rev goes 06. That's an option for sure.
Is
we
it
got
though?
2008, 2007. I mean, technically it's an option. One of these questions at some point this year, it's going to be an answer that's not listed, and you have to type it in, and you have to figure that out.
This one's a little.
It's a gray area.
It's a gray area.
You say introduce, but when full-time usage starts. So
Yeah,
I think
Well, if you remember correctly, they did do it for 5 or 10 races in the year it was introduced. It wasn't many.
I'm sticking with my answer mid-season of blank year that I put in the chat.
Here. We got a lot of answers there. Good to see. Jared, I'm going to go ahead and say you're wrong as well, just because you're Jared and I can tell you that. But the correct answer is 2007. So 2007, and the first race with the car tomorrow was at Bristol for the Bristol Spring Race. If I remember correctly, I think Kyle Busch won that race. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult during those years just because it was around that time, but which year for sure is difficult.
I think it was Kyle Busch because if I remember correctly, he in his Victory Lane interview he said, "I still hate this car. It sucks," and it got him in trouble.
Sounds like Patrick Hernandez.
Hate this car.
Oh boy.
You know, I don't think I heard that Tuesday though. That's what's crazy.
No, because there was a good race out of him.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're running top 3 and still complaining about the car, I don't know what to do at that point.
Oh man. Well, let's go ahead and go over to our standings if you could, Robert.
This is going to be a bittersweet.
Yeah, we'll start with team standings.
It's gonna be bittersweet, both of these for me.
So the team standings, some big changes happened. I'm waiting for them to pull up on my end just before confirming anything. Gotcha. Oh, I should have.
Oh, is that a thing?
Let me go ahead and pull that up real quick before I get into that. Sorry for the pause,
it is.
y'all.
This is.
That's helpful.
This is helpful.
Awesome. All right, sorry about that, guys. So our team standings, a bit of a shakeup, I think. Maverick Motorsports gained roughly 9 or 10 points on Next Level Motorsports. Limitless dropped to 3rd, but they didn't really lose much ground to Next Level, thanks to Jared being completely murdered by a Limitless driver. It kind of gave them a wash.
That was a homicide.
But Maverick with the most team points in a race this season was Maverick last race. I think.
Yeah, 3 of the top 5: Mason, Dustin, and Brendan. First,
I think
3rd,
they
and
earned
5th.
38 points as a team as their average points.
And they all of them finished in the top 10. So yeah, I can definitely see them being huge points there.
So that was huge for them.
Looks like Brendan confirmed 38 for that.
That is what I had thought I calculated. But then we have Racers for Christ in 4th, Accelerate holding down 5th. Meatball Motorsports had a little bit of a drop this week just because they no longer have, or well, didn't at least, maybe not permanently, but did not have a second driver. And when you don't have at least 2 drivers, you don't earn points, unfortunately. You just slide down a little bit. So that was slotted in by CFM Esports in 6th, Full Send in 7th. Like I said, Meatball Motorsports in 8th. Freaky Fast and Robert and Sam, y'all are holding down 9th. And in 10th is Showtime Racing and Andrew's team in 11th. Still with that big 3 on the scoreboard. I don't think that's going to change this year unless Andrew can figure something else about that.
I mean, if you're going to pick a number in a NASCAR league to have points, I guess 3 is a pretty good one.
It's kind of impressive, though, that they got 3 points in one race. At Atlanta, let's see. I mean, it was all in the bottom.
Were they even a team at Atlanta?
They were officially because they earned points.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, you had a 41st place finish and a 37th place finish. So you had 6 points divided by 2 drivers. Yep. So there you go. Don't be like Andrew's team, or just Andrew get more drivers. But yep, not much more really else to talk about there. 5 races left until the chase, but that's not really pertinent to the team standings. 10 races left in the team standings season, so lots of time for things to change. And just as we saw Maverick putting up a absolute dominant performance, you can gain some big ground real quick. So lots of time for things to shake out there. Robert, if we can move on over to the driver standings. All right, so driver standings, there was a lot of movement this week. right after the week, I said we're probably getting comfortable where we're at. There was a lot of changes. Mason still holds first pretty dominantly, 53 points over myself. Unfortunately, Isaiah, due to his incidents, moved him down to third, but he really didn't lose much points. It's like he's still right in the thick of things for the lead there. Johnny Wood fourth. Adam, you find yourself in fifth. Like you said, you're running fifth all night, Chicagoland. That's where you are. Dustin Stallings sixth. Gray Walker seventh. Matthew Catania eighth. Brandon Maddox ninth. Dakota Camper finding his way up into the top 10 after being on the outside of the cut line not too long ago. And then Jared Hughes falls to 11th. Zachary King comes back into 12th and takes over that spot from Richard Wolsifer. Lots to cover here. Adam, give me your gut reaction to looking at this.
My gut reaction?
Yes.
Richard's upset. That's my
Not
gut
wrong.
reaction to this. Just looking over it very quickly. I mean, I looked at this one after the race on Tuesday, and I looked at it a little more after Steven had posted it. What stands out to me is just how close it is. I mean, obviously there's a big gap between Mason and Steven, but Steven and Isaiah and even Johnny, you know, pretty much right on top of each other. And then you've got me, Dustin, and Gray again, all right there. I mean, it's
a bunch of groupings.
There's a lot of groupings, yeah, and that I think that speaks to the season as a whole. Maybe not necessarily how the races have went, but just where people have finished. But this goes back to, we talked about this a little bit last season towards the end. I really think our points, the way we do the points in our league, I think this is just a reflection of that. That is, if there's one thing we have figured out, it is the points, because consistently they have been super close. That cut line battle too, man. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 guys that are in one race striking distance of if that guy, you know, if Richard has a bad race or if Zach has a bad race. Good battles all throughout the points. And that's really good to see. You know, Mason obviously has a pretty big gap, but you go down from there and, you know, things can change pretty quick. Like Steven said, which is a good word to use, there's a lot of groupings. So it's hard to jump, you know, multiple positions, but it's definitely not hard to fall 2 or 3 or even 4 if you have a bad race.
Well, see, sorry, Adam, just don't mean to interrupt your flow there, but you know, the reason this is kind of bittersweet is I gained in points. I was 29 points back last week, but I was only 3 back of the cut. I am now 4 back of the cut with Scott's breaking the tiebreaker, but only 18 points back. I made up 11 points, but I lost a spot in the chase standings.
Really?
Yeah.
Because of the trade-off of Richard was, I don't remember how many points, but he was roughly 8 points up on Zach King. So you gain
something like that.
You gain all that whenever it's the change of position. It's really interesting what can get thrown in there.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's tough.
Going back to, sorry, Adam. You talked about Mason has a 50-point lead over second, roughly 50. 50 points at that point, or at that part of the, I guess, standings grouping, if you may, I think is a lot harder to close that gap than 50 points from, say, Richard to, I don't know, even 21st or 22nd. Those 50 points can evaporate like that.
It's a totally different scenario. Yeah, if you're you in second, 50 some points behind, you know, based on the fact that you have to race Mason every week, that gap probably isn't going to get cut in half 2 weeks in a row. But if you're, you know, like Jared's a really good example. Okay, so Jared is in 11th, roughly 30, not even 20, what is it, 20 something points up. 26 points up. I mean, one more bad race that's that. You know what I mean? Especially if you get Richard or Carl or Evan or any of these guys that have a really good race. I mean, that's a really good point, Steven. Yeah, I didn't really consider that. The difference of 50 points between first and second is a lot different between 50 points between 11th and, 17th. So,
And not to take anything away from the guys running from 13th to 20 whatever, but Mason's running, I don't know what his average finish is this season, probably third.
it's gotta be, yeah, 3
So,
point something. Yeah.
If I have an absolutely
So his
flawless
average
race, I
running
get like
position is
3 points.
4.5. His
Yeah.
average position in general is 4.2. His average starts 1.7, so he tends to end up on the pole. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Gavin. Sorry. 6.3 average finish, 5.7 average starts. So yeah, average running position for him though is 3.0 and 3.3 average position total running. So yeah, he's definitely always up there. He's led 43% of the laps this season.
That's
he's
tough to gain
it's
any
tough to
points
beat.
on.
Exactly. Although, let's not also, now that the fast repair is gone, let's go back to Austria where he ran over a lap car. Without that meatball, without that fast repair, that would have ended that race. So there's still opportunity. There's 5 races left in the season for a lot of stuff to happen. Pocono, Darlington, IRP, Daytona's mixed in there. There's still so much that can happen.
One other thing that stands out to me is, and this isn't a dig at anybody, I think it just goes to show how competitive it is right now. Some of these guys that are on the outside looking in that I just would not have expected to be there. Richard stands out to me. Carl stands out to me. Evan Patinko stands out to me. Jamie Plord stands out to me. I mean, these are guys that I would have, if you had me make a chase list, they would have all 100% been in it. But that's, we've got 30 some cars out there running every week, man. Stage points don't necessarily mean what they used to, which I think is a good thing. Yeah, points though, man. It's gonna come down to the wire again this season. I wouldn't be surprised if the last regular season race of the season we have 4 or 5 guys trying to get in there.
And with it being at Michigan, you can race 3-4 wide and really send it. So it'll be another possibility too of a tire strategy / fuel run. So yeah, I mean, and then Daytona, anyone can do anything at Daytona. We saw how Zachary King shook everything up and won the first outing at Atlanta. So again, who knows what that impacts, that winner, that impact could have, the 2 races from the chase at that point.
Exactly, and especially to compound that of not having a fast repair now makes you second guess of how risky do I need to be to get those points, or do I play it safe and try to slowly pick my way back into it. And even there's a grouping of Jared, Brendan, and Dakota Camper are all within 5 points of each other, and they're 9th, 10th, and 11th. A couple bad races out of them, and there's a bunch of guys chomping at the bit looking to get in.
Oh man, I didn't even notice that. You don't even need to have a couple bad races. That's one bad race.
Right. And so I don't know, Carl, the window is there.
Oh, it's there. Trust me. I've tried to make that window larger, and I've made mistakes. So, yeah, it's definitely, obviously it's not quite panic button yet. But right now, being 18 low, and I've had 2 top 10s. I think this is my 3rd race all season long where I got any kind of stage points. It's been a struggle for me. It's really been tough. It's nice to turn it around, but I really hope I can maintain at least some of this forward momentum and maybe work on scrounging up a couple of points here and there in a top 10 finish. Michigan, I'm confident. Daytona, I call it 50-50. So really, who knows? Who knows what could happen?
Well, there's still a lot of time left. With 5 races remaining, anything can happen. You could even see a guy not in the top 20 right now finding his way in still potentially. Excuse me, Robert, if we can go ahead to the 21 through 40. The fight I really like here, well, first of all, 22nd to 26th, you can even go down to 27th, are within 10 points, which is crazy to think about. But the real battle I like here is Robert Moyer and Sam Dyer separated.
Man, this is a
2
storyline in
points.
itself, man.
No, 3 points. Sorry. Teammates on the track, but also they're their biggest competitors, which is awesome to see, and can't wait to see who gets the
I
bragging
really
rights
want
there.
to put a microscope over here because Robert comes out at the end of stage 2 and says, "You know what? I want that 1 bonus point for leading." So he stays out, doesn't take tires or fuel. Robert stays out, going for that point. That's how much that little stunts and
It might
how
make
much
the
that
difference.
matters to Robert and Sam. But although he did that, Robert did finish 4 or 5 spots behind Sam. So was it a net gain or was it a net loss? I think we'll have to time to find out. But that was definitely a curiosity move to see that.
Hey, anytime you can get a chance for extra points, you take it when you're in that kind of close of a battle. Yep, there you go. But I mean, hey, it was Robert's first bonus point of the season, mind you.
You got to get them when you can.
Between the two of them, Robert does lead that category at 1 bonus point to 0 bonus points for Sam. So
Ooh, Sam,
it's Sam's
pick up your
move
game,
now.
buddy.
It was his first top 20 of the season. Well, you got some ground to make up now. 3 points is going to be tough over these next. I don't know if y'all are doing it to the chase or if y'all are going to the end of the season. Which one matters more? But that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I'm trying to look here. Any other talking points? Gavin Rogers fell to 29th in standings after removing Zachary Branfold from the race.
Poor guy.
Got a feel for him there.
International travesty.
Oh boy. Well, before we even get into next week's race, let's go to our second trivia question of the night.
Trivia.
Thank you. Someone had to pick up the slack for Richard not being here.
What do you think my main job is? It's what I do. Come on.
Yeah, it's going to say question 1 right now on the screen. There it is. So we got question 2 coming up. Let me pull it up. And question 2 is, what track is NASCAR's shortest track? And your answer choices are Martinsville, Bristol, and the LA Coliseum. And your 30 seconds begins now.
Man, Steven worked hard on these questions. You could tell.
You know what's funny? This one was the hardest one to think of.
I have submitted my answer in the chat.
I have seen.
Now, wait a minute. Are we talking about permanent establishments?
He didn't say that. He said shortest track.
Yeah, see, I'm with Rev on this one.
What did Rev say?
Because is it really a track? Because they take it up and move it. So I don't consider the Coliseum a actual track.
Interesting.
I disagree. They race cars there under sanctioned NASCAR events. That makes it a NASCAR track.
It is
even if
not
they
an
not
active NASCAR track.
Not anymore.
You didn't say active NASCAR track.
Okay, maybe I didn't word it the way you want it worded.
Well, then I'm changing my answer, sir.
That's fine.
Too many questions to the question.
Steven has clearly saw my chat response.
I have seen your chat response. And the funniest thing is here, I'm going to reveal the answer now. The correct answer is Martinsville. It is.
Oh, shit. Yeah, of course it is.
Martinsville is exactly half a mile, where Bristol is, I think, 0.533.
Yes, that is exactly. Actually, they put it on those stats. Bristol, 0.533 miles. They are really proud of that.
And that's why they say it's the world's fastest half mile.
I'm filing a petition with the guy who makes these questions.
All I'm going to say is you got it wrong twice, Adam. It doesn't matter how you color it.
I feel like I should get bonus points.
Maybe I'll disconnect you from next race.
I'm an overachiever. Well, at least I'll make sure I'm running first when it happens.
Oh boy. Oh man. Robert, if we can go back to like the main screen. And we'll cover next week's race. So next week we are at Pocono, for the Maddox graphics, 200, 250.
Oh no, Pocono.
It should be a 250, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
250. Thank you guys. Pocono was pulling it up.
100
race.
laps.
Thank you. Stages are lap 25 and lap 50. 100 laps, 80% fuel, 5 sets of tires in the pits. It says 1 fast repair and race info. Maybe we should get that changed.
Yeah,
We can
I'll
let
have
her
that
know for you.
updated. When I move it to this week's race, I'll have the fast repair taken off there. I'll probably go through that channel and delete that.
Probably a good call. Just someone's gonna be like, no, we should actually get a fast repair.
Well, the race info says fast
Yeah.
repair. It's
But,
not in the, you know.
Pocono, the tricky triangle, if you may. 2.5 mile track with 3 turns. Completely unlike any other 2.5 mile track on the circuit. You've got to use braking. It's a lot compared to a road course, I've heard it compared to, which is really interesting. And the whole other thing is you get to stay as a pack a majority of the race. The draft is super important, and it's really difficult to make a pass from races I've seen in the past and even recently with specifically WSSR. There was just a line of cars, and if you get out of that line, you have to make that pass quick, or you're being shoved out of line and you're falling back. So it's going to be really interesting to see how people strategically work out their passes. Track position is going to be important. Getting those positions is going to be very difficult, and unfortunately, I think we're going to see some incidents just by people getting desperate at times and trying to make up those positions because maybe they didn't have a good qualifying run or whatever the case is. What do y'all think about this race? Do y'all like Pocono? Is it just
I'm not a fan. I've never had good luck at Pocono. I don't do good at Pocono. We just don't agree. Like the 3 corners doesn't compute to my brain. I need that 4th corner. I feel like with the 4th corner I could probably do something, but it's a tough one. It does race like a road course. A lot of the strategy, especially fuel comes around. It's gonna be more road course but again, you combine that with the fact that you need to stay in that draft, not only for fuel, but to maintain speed with the rest of the pack. So Pocono is going to be tough. I do think you're going to see some of those guys on the cut line trying to make some spots. I think Jared is actually pretty decent at Pocono if I remember correctly. So this could be a chance for him to recover from this week here, wherever we raced. at Chicagoland, but yeah, that one track. But yeah, it's one of those tracks where I feel like some people are really good at it and other people are not, and I'm on that other category that are not. So,
well,
Yeah,
Adam, how are you feeling?
I have really mixed feelings about Pocono. I inherently like racing the track. Like I enjoy driving it, but I I can't say that I love, at least in the past, the racing there. I'm not looking forward to the race. I'll put it that way. For one reason or another, I don't struggle. It just seems like I don't know. I guess it just doesn't fit my driving style. It's kind of one of those tracks like I equate it to kind of like an Indianapolis. Like if I just have to make laps around Indianapolis by myself, I really enjoy it trying to put hot laps in. But when I have to race with other cars, I'm like, this is terrible. I hate this. I think it'll go one in two ways. I think we're either going to have a really, really clean race, or we're going to have a little bit of a rough race. It just kind of depends on exactly how the car drives. I haven't put in any laps yet, so I'm not sure if it's tight, if it's loose. If it's a tighter setup, I think we'll probably be okay. If it's a little bit looser, especially going through that tunnel turn in turn 2, it can be a little difficult to navigate that if you're trying to pass. So, optimistic that we have a good race. As far as my individual race goes, time will tell.
Pocono is really interesting to me. It seems completely different in sim than it is in real life, or at least watching races.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would agree.
When watching the WSSR race, I was like glued to my seat. Just like it was exciting. Like all cars were next to each other. You see a car trying to get out of the groove and try to make his pass. And just seeing how close they were and kind of a game of chess. It was really cool to see. So in real life, it usually gets strung out and it's boring and it's what it is. Um, so I think it'll be exciting and entertaining for our viewers, and stressful at the same time for our drivers, especially if one mistake happens. Your race is probably done if you get in a wreck at Pocono. You're not often going to get just a little bit of damage.
Well, it
It'll be interesting.
depends because especially the back stretch, there's a lot of runoff. Even the front straightaway, you can get like 10 cars abreast. So I feel like if it's long as it's not egregious, you can lock it down. You can save it. The question will be, can you save it? Do you just keep it out of the wall? Does the cars behind you not pull a Rocket Richard and take you out? So you gotta
Rocket
I think
Richard.
that's the most important part. You got to keep your head on a swivel, and if you see smoke, say something and back off because it'll most likely result in a caution.
The one thing I'll say about Pocono, it's if you do get damage that's salvageable and you're not completely wrecked out, the caution laps do take forever there. So you do have time to repair the damage, but Steven and Carl both, I think I agree with both of you because it depends on where you get wrecked. If you get wrecked in the corner, you're probably toast. You're either going to get taken out by a Rocket Richard or the wall. I'm patenting that or trademarking that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's the new league trademark.
That is, arc of braking is gone. It's now being referred to as Rocket Richarding. If you get turned on the straightaway coming out of a corner and you go down to the inside of the track, there's a lot of runoff. I have a sneaky suspicion that's not going to be where the wrecks happen, though.
It doesn't seem like that is the hot spot. The hot spot definitely seems like the entrance of one, or the tunnel turn if you're too wide at the tunnel turn.
Two is the hot spot that I'm concerned about. It because you get that run between 1 and 2, and guys just don't want to give it up. You know what I mean? And the guy that has the run behind him wants to take the run. So I think turn 2 is going to be the problem if I had to guess.
We shall see. This coming Tuesday. The race will be on Pit Stop TV this coming Tuesday, which is what date? Is that the 31st? No.
No, it should be what, the 4th,
28th.
28th.
28th. Thank you, Carl. At 9 p.m. Eastern on January 28th on Pit Stop TV's YouTube channel. You'll be able to catch the Maddox Graphics 250. Let's go ahead and pick our winners for Pocono. And looking back at last week, Carl, you had Johnny, and myself, I had Gray Walker, and Richard had Adam. We were all incorrect.
But you're all up front, though, so
we were all up front, but we were close, but no cigar there. Still currently this season, we only have 2 correct answers, Richard having 1 and myself having 1. Carl, you're lacking in that department.
Get your numbers up. Just rub it in. More wins that they don't have. Thanks.
Those are rookie numbers, Carl. Gotta pump those numbers up.
If only it was so easy.
And since that's the case, Carl, we're gonna let you go first and pick your winner.
Oh, I'm gonna curse him. He's gonna get the Carl curse. See, this is tough because, like I said, Pocono does seem to favor some drivers over others. Mason's over here in chat saying he just got it. It's fun, loves it. It's loose, and if he's putting laps down, then he's gonna be fast. He's already looking forward to the race. But I don't think Mason's gonna win it. I do not think that's gonna be the case. I will go out and say, oh man, that's tough. Steven, I think you have a good shot at this one. You tend to do really well at the draft, and you did really well last week. I think you have a lot of momentum to build. You have a deep knowledge of this track, I feel like. So I think, Steven, you're gonna be my pick.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that you're going to give this person the Carl curse and then picking myself.
Anytime for you, buddy. Anytime.
I sincerely appreciate that. And I don't think I can agree with you there. It's not one of my favorite tracks, but it is fun, and I'll give it a shot. But Adam, who is your winner for this week?
I don't think I get put up on the list, and Carl took my pick, but I'm picking you too, Steven.
I hate you both.
I think you are having. Steven and I talked about this earlier in the season. Steven took all of my luck and left me none of it this season. I have not caught. I can count. I have not caught one lucky break this entire season. I have caught all the bad breaks, and Steven was like that last season. So I guess it's my turn.
I feel that, Adam.
But you've been fast, man. You've been really, really consistent. And every time I kind of think to myself, like, oh, I don't know if Steven's gonna be super strong here, you end up being super strong. So I'm gonna pick you, and I hope you don't finish 27th and blame Carl and I.
Well, I
you
really
can blame me, it's fine.
appreciate both of y'all.
I'm not on the list, so if you have to
I
blame
mean-
somebody, this is Carl's fault.
That's true.
That is
I mean, I
very
think
true.
going back to like the luck or whatever we want to call it, I think last year my luck was so bad that it had to turn at some point, and I don't know if it was just I needed the clean slate. And I've gotten a good fair share of luck, I guess you can say, this season. And I hope that continues, and I hope that I'm not going to look back on this moment and be like, this is where my luck changed the rest of the season. I have a feeling in a couple weeks I'm going to be like, episode 8 of the Holler podcast when we had Adam on and it was just me, Adam, and Carl. They really
was
put the hex on me.
unfortunate.
So
The Carl curse.
I mean, Carl literally called it a curse before he picked
Exactly.
you.
Yeah,
I
he
did
did.
not do that. So
I'm also just buying time because I really don't know who's going to win. It's just such a unique track. I'm hesitating to pick Mason, just because it's a track he just got, but he's just been so fast everywhere. Yeah, I do think I agree with Sam and Johnny Wood Jr. I think that's a really good option. Johnny is also another one of those guys that's fast just about anywhere, and I think he's lagging behind this season. He doesn't have a win yet. I don't know what's going on with Johnny, but yeah, Johnny gets his first win of the season. But there are so many good options. I could see Dustin winning. I could see anyone in the top 10 in the standings easily winning any of these races. Just not Richard.
not Richard. Richard won't win.
Richard will never win again. But there you have it. So you got myself and Johnny. We'll get Richard's pick at some point and add it there to take a look at it next week. But yeah, I think that is all we have for the BRB Racing League side of things. We can get into some NASCAR news or just general questions, actually. We've never done that before. If anyone in chat has just a general question or anything they want us to talk about, it could be NASCAR related, it could be league related, it could be motorsport related in general. Feel free to ask it, and while we talk, we can bring it up. The first NASCAR news I really wanted to talk about real quick was the revival, I guess you can say, of Red Bull Racing.
Yeah, that's a big story, man. I mean, I would have never. I didn't think there was any chance they'd come back. I thought if they were going to come back, they would have been on SVG's car that first race he showed up for. But that stuff takes time, and here we are. I'm super excited for it. I always had a soft spot for those cars, so I'm excited, super excited to see it on track. It's Zilich, right? Zilich is the other one driving.
Yes. Zilich will race it for one race at COTA, and SVG will have it on for 5 races.
Yeah,
I'm not sure on those, but
that's one of those deals where it's just all around good for the sport. There's no downside to Red Bull Racing being involved in NASCAR. So I'm super excited to see it.
I think it's one of those things where it's kind of weird not seeing them. I mean, they're WRC, they're in obviously Formula One, they're in might as well be in IndyCar. It's just weird not seeing them in NASCAR. You got Celsius and Monster and all those other energy drinks. It's weird not seeing Red Bull, but having them back in NASCAR is nice. It's nice to see. Again, I think we spoke about this last season in an episode where it's just good publicity, good to see sponsors coming in, bringing money into the sport, bringing more, like a huge international chain like Red Bull saying, "Hey, these are our cars that we're putting out there." So I think it's good for the sport overall. Just good for also Connor Zilic. There's no doubt that he's very, very talented, but he's been, bouncing from team to team, trying to find a ride somewhere. He's currently in Daytona right now, doing prepping for the 24 Rolex. So he's in a GT3 instead of an LMP this year. So another very multi-talented individual who's trying to find his way into whichever path he wants to go, he can do it just because he's that talented.
And Sam, we'll get into your question here in a minute. Carl, you bring up a great point, and I think that's a little lost in this announcement of Red Bull is that Connor Zilic is going to be making his Cup debut at Coda. Cup debut? No, I mean he hasn't raced in Cup yet, to my knowledge.
No.
Yeah,
no.
I think that's
He's
a
ran
really
in the
big
trucks,
deal.
but yeah.
Especially last year in the trucks at Coda, he dominated qualifying. Didn't dominate the race per se, but he dominated qualifying, and it's going to be really interesting to see him out there in a Cup car and with guys like SVG and other road course ringers, seeing him actually compete against the best of the best. It's going to be awesome.
That was one thing that I wanted to ask because I'm just not familiar with it. Is Zilic really what we would call a road course ringer, or is he just good at road courses? You know what I mean? I feel like there's a difference between a ringer.
That's a fair point.
Because I'm not it's not an argument. I legitimately don't know.
I guess you're saying of like road course ringer can kind of seem as like a downgrade to someone that's not good at ovals.
Yeah, or that is just hyper fixated on those road courses. So like an SVG right now, you know what I mean? He would be considered a ringer. And Cup, you have, AJ Allmendinger, who was kind of a road course ringer for Cup. Not so much in Xfinity. He had a lot of success on the ovals there, but just guys like that. I don't know. So I know Zilic is good. So I'm
There's
excited
a lot to be determined, I'm sure, regarding Zilic, but just based off of his limited running in Xfinity and trucks, that he can hold his own on ovals just as well as he can on road courses. But on road courses, it seems like he has that little extra oomph compared to the rest of the field.
It'll be exciting to see him on track, though. I think Steven makes a good point there. I feel like it did get overshadowed because everyone got so excited for Red Bull.
And I'm bummed that Richard's not here to talk about it. I know Connor Zilic is one of his quote-unquote boys, if you may, especially with him this season in Xfinity with JRM. But him getting his chance in Cup will definitely be awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, Red Bull back after 12 years. I think it was 2013 was the last time they were in NASCAR. So definitely good to have them back. And now Sam's question, wanted to go back to. Sam asked, who put IRP on the schedule, and not having a faster pair, does it make you rethink having it on the schedule? It's really funny that you say that, Sam, the rethinking part of it, because I think we were sitting there in the admin chat after discussing of getting rid of the faster pair for last week, and I was looking at the schedule, just thinking how things will play out the rest of the season, and I saw IRP on there. I'm like, I don't like that it's there now, but I mean, it's for sure. If we could go back at the start of the season, I don't know if it would be there in this scenario, but it is there, and it's going to be what it is. I think people will just have to be really careful.
I think our luck with short tracks isn't great either because we've tried Martinsville last season, that didn't work. Richmond the first season, that didn't work out very well. So we're trying to stay away from those tracks, but still keep the variety. So IRP was on there and was like, how bad could it be? I guess we're gonna find out.
Oh, go ahead,
please.
The thing about the short tracks is there's no inherent reason that the races should be as bad as they are, right? Like, of course, you're going to have more contact. You're probably going to have more yellows than a Chicagoland, but they don't need to be as bad as they've been. I don't believe that we've had any what I would call successful short track races. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
would throw Bristol in there a couple times. We've had
well, if you
really
okay,
good
so
races.
Bristol's a little bit different, but fair, yeah.
Flat
Some of
short
the
tracks,
flat short tracks,
a
less than
whole
a
nother
mile.
question.
Oh
We
man,
You
have
know,
Phoenix,
yeah,
New Hampshire, and Martinsville.
all brutal.
yeah.
I
Well, even
I
Dover wasn't terrible.
I
I don't
think
think.
I think not. I don't think it's gonna matter where we go. I think the not having a fast repair, and I think the fact that you're gonna get a drive through. I think that impacts the way guys drive a lot. Um, it's hard for me to comment on it because I am probably overly cautious 95% of the time. So it really doesn't affect my mindset too much as far as the driving goes because I don't really care if I have a fast repair or not. I just don't want to get in a wreck. Um, but we do have quite a few aggressive drivers. And hopefully we see because some of this stuff on the short tracks was just silly. You know what I mean? It was just throwing it in there and cleaning a guy out or not being mindful of breaking points and stuff like that. So hopefully some of that stuff can get cleaned up. I didn't that's one thing for just so everybody knows kind of how it goes. I don't put any input into the schedule at all. I let Steve and Carl, the other guys, do the schedule because I just feel like if I'm in there pushing for certain tracks or whatever, there's kind of like a inherent bias that I can't not have come across. But those guys do a really good job at you know balancing the schedule, and we've done it like this since the beginning. So it's nobody's individual fault. Maybe it's Richard's. I don't know.
You bring up a really good point there, Adam, of that we do have a lot of input, I guess, into it. So it's not one driver's favorite track each week. I
Right.
mean, if we can race at Homestead each week, I would love that schedule. But I don't know.
And that's one of the reasons that I try to stay out of it because I feel like whether I want it to or not, I feel like sometimes my opinion might get weighed a little more than somebody else's, and I don't think that's fair, especially for a schedule creation. And I would just make the whole schedule gateway, and all of you guys would hate it. So,
And speaking of which, season 4 schedule talks are going to be starting here fairly soon.
yeah, which is crazy, but yeah, we're getting there.
It's going to be interesting. So, if there's a track y'all want to see that we have not raced yet, just throw the ideas down there. Not saying that any of them will be picked, but just give us some ideas.
Put realistic suggestions in the chat.
Right.
Because what happens when we sit down to make these schedules is I think a lot of our brains default to like kind of the normal tracks, but these guys have done a great job, not just through BRB, but through Wicked, with keeping a good variety and bringing tracks that we haven't raced this season before, and then kind of bringing back some fan favorites or driver favorites. So put those in the chat, and they'll seriously consider it when we're sitting down to do this. Just
And we're definitely looking at potentially another international road course or even a dirt track. Everything is still technically on the table, is what I'm going to say for now. I'm not going to say we're leaning one way or the other, but just trying to gather just overall feedback. Where the league wants to go is where I think we're going to go. The vast majority. We are working for the league. We are working for the vast majority. The reason the dirt track was removed.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
I think it's silly that after we did a dirt race last season, 3/4 of the league was up in arms that we did a dirt race, and then we didn't do a dirt race this season. Everyone's like, well, hey, where's that dirt race at?
Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like.
Pick your battles, folks. Pick the battles.
So, I don't know. Hey, maybe Bowman Gray gets added to iRacing. Go to the Coliseum next season.
I don't want that at all, but
Wild West. What about that figure 8 expedition race that we did? Maybe if we make that a real race.
Oh, okay. With jumps this time.
Wasn't any worse than any of our other half-mile races, so throw it on there.
True.
Throw it on there.
Oh boy. What other NASCAR news do y'all want to talk about? There's definitely news that's just slipping from my head.
Really just sponsorships. King's Hawaiians coming on board with
Oh
Denny
yeah.
Hamlin. Since we're talking about sponsors, which makes me hungry. I love those King Hawaiian rolls.
Shout out to King's
Super
Hawaiian
excited.
rolls because those things are delicious.
Mhm.
I think it is a perfect sponsor for Denny Hamlin to have, and I can't wait to see that diecast.
I bet that diecast is going to be sweet.
Oh, I mean, they were Brad's best schemes in my opinion. So I hope that they don't fall short on a Toyota.
I did love that orange
Oh, it's
car he
perfect
drove.
orange.
It was
Oh.
really, really good.
You know, Gray Walker does bring up a good point. NASCAR decided to do away with the mandatory rookie stripes.
Stupid.
I
Stupid. I agree.
Because like you need to know who you're racing. You don't want to go up there and be like, "Oh, this guy is Connor Zillage. This is his first Cup race. Good luck." It's like, "Oh, I don't want to be behind this dude," because you know those drivers look for those rookie stripes, especially on those super speedways, and it makes me wonder if our races at these super speedways is adjusting that a little bit because now it's like, oh, I'm going to push this guy. It's like, oh, well, watch out. This is Zillage. This is his first race. I don't know how hard you want to push him. So
Well,
it's curious.
And it really blows my mind that they get rid of it when I would have understood more so back in the day of when a car had a sponsor, the same paint scheme essentially all season,
Mm-hmm.
you knew who that was. These guys are
Or a
changing
single
cars.
driver.
Right. That too. And these guys are changing sponsors and paint schemes each week. It's hard enough for the fans to know. As a driver, like, I don't know who that is by the back of their car. I know it's a Toyota and I know it's green. Like, who could that be? So it's really interesting that they get rid of things like that. And I think that really just benefits viewers. Of it's kind of cool to see like, oh, what did the like a casual NASCAR fan watching for the first time? What do the yellow stripes mean? They find it out, and maybe you get a connection with that guy.
Or especially like the truck series where you have a 1 or 2 off, or the Xfinity series where you're Ryan Truex and you only have 5 races. Like, I don't know. I think that's important, especially like you said, Steven, when you're rotating teams and cars. I think it is important.
A silly move. I'm curious. I wanted to be in the room with NASCAR when they made that decision. Was it just like, all right, are we removing rookie stripes? Is it like one of our admin meetings? We just bring it to the table and they're like, oh, let's get rid of them. Okay.
That's fine.
Seems
Yeah.
totally reasonable.
Right. Like,
Why not?
it just doesn't seem necessary. Was it an extra cost? It's a cost cutting measure by NASCAR.
Well, yeah. Well, and on top of all the other things of NASCAR, oh, the safety this, safety that, let's got to change the track. Oh, let's focus on the stripe. How is that important at all in any situation?
One thing that we could touch on, it's not on track news, but I know earlier this week we got some new news for the NASCAR 25 console game that all 4 series are going to be featured in one way or the other. So we have the Cup Series, Xfinity Series, Craftsman Truck Series, and the ARCA Series are all going to be involved in the game in some way. I'm assuming they're going to have full career modes, or maybe you work your way up from. My hope is they make a true career mode where you kind of work your way up from the ARCA Series through the Cup Series. I think that would be super cool. I don't think we've seen something quite like that since maybe NASCAR 04, and I can't even remember if NASCAR 04 did that.
So
I think it was just more of a in-depth Winston Cup at the time career.
I think specifically NASCAR Heat like touched on it a little bit with like
Yeah.
there was like a dirt series, then you go to truck Xfinity, but it was very bare bones, it felt. You can even go back to NASCAR 07 EA. They had the fight to the top mode for a couple of years. And there you were in Featherlight Modifieds.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
And
I forgot about
modifieds
that.
truck
Yeah, you
to
did. I forgot
push.
they had modifieds.
And that one was like the best for I feel like the modern era, I guess you can say. But then even further back, you can go to Dirt to Daytona, which I think is a lot of people's favorite when it comes to career mode. Just the progression of how you like built your team and progressed through.
I
Yeah, I
must have
think
played
Dirt
that
to
a dozen times.
Dirt to Daytona and then NASCAR Thunder 04, I think are regarded as the best
04 is a great career mode.
the best career modes. 04, you don't have like the start in a different series and work your way up necessarily, but it's just a really good career mode.
Yes.
I'm super so full transparency. I won't own that game. I have a PS4, but it has not been turned on. It's been at least 3 years. So I probably won't invest in the game. The last game I played on my PS4 was a game called Death Stranding when that released. Just not a big console person, but to kind of expand on it, NASCAR needs a good, easy to access video game. I was unique that I was introduced to NASCAR because of my dad and things like that, but a lot of kids and a lot of people I know personally got introduced to NASCAR because of the games. You know what I mean? I'm a little bit older than a lot of people here. I'm
And was
35.
that Nintendo 64?
No, it was PlayStation 1. I had a PS1. You either had a PlayStation or a Nintendo, I think. But either way, you were probably playing NASCAR 97, 98, or 99. And none of those games are regarded as groundbreaking games, but they were good enough and fun enough that they got kids interested. You know what I mean? NASCAR needs a way to get younger people involved in the sport. And a good console game is long overdue because we have not had one in a minute. I mean, I know
Been a
people
long
played Heat.
time.
I know people played Heat 5, but I think that's because there was nothing else to play. Like I don't think it was a matter of like, man, Heat 5 is really good. If I remember correctly, Heat 5 was inexplicably broken when it
Mhm.
came out. So I'm super excited for it. I think it's good for the sport. And I think it's good for the guys in the ARCA series too, in the lower series to get, some exposure that way. So
Well, yeah,
Right.
because I mean, the ARCA series is barely even touched on. Really, even NASCAR themselves don't really advertise the ARCA series. It's almost like ARCA's the redheaded stepchild of anything stock car. And if you're lucky enough to get through ARCA, then okay, we'll see what you can do in a truck. But it seems like ARCA is one of those forgotten series that not a lot of people talk about. And seeing them on the stage for NASCAR 25, I think is a big deal.
well, it's not a stepping stone like it used to be. You know what I mean? Like
That's
it
true.
used to be you kind of had to go through ARCA back in the day at least,
Mhm.
unless you were really special. I I mean, I don't have the statistics and I'm not going to look them up, but I can't remember the last kind of really good or star driver that even ran a full season in ARCA. You know what I mean? So it's just nice to, and ARCA was its own series up until, a couple years ago when NASCAR formally bought it. But to Carl's point, it does not get the same level of love that even the truck series gets. So it's cool to see it being featured here.
Well, and you'd have to think that the licensing just made sense because iRacing is now developing the game. We see it
Yeah.
in iRacing of you have D class, you have ARCA, you have C class trucks, B class Xfinity, A class Cup. It was just a natural, like that is the progression for iRacing. So that's going to be the progression that they're going to have in their career mode. It just makes a lot of sense that that would be the case. I really hope that they make sure that they have this game on PC. I feel like that's what's changed a lot in video games since the last good NASCAR game
I
is there were consoles.
I don't think it's going to be.
I don't know if it's been confirmed or anything or whatever the case is on the scenario on that, but I do hope it's not just on consoles because console game I think is a different meaning now than what it used to mean.
It does.
Um,
You're 100% right.
so I mean I just think with the larger audience that the PC brings and I mean a lot of us here we have our sim rigs. I think a lot of us would love to just get the game to have fun and run a career mode. Pretty fun. And
Oh, take my money.
yeah, like
Yeah,
even with iRacing,
100%.
I'll still buy it. Um,
Well, the one thing missing from iRacing is kind of just that, like, I just want to get on and have fun. Like,
yep.
yes, we all like iRacing. Obviously, we have a podcast about it and spend half of our free time managing a league for it, so obviously we enjoy it. But it is really hard to just sit down and have fun with. You know what I mean? Because no matter what, if you're in an official, you're like, oh, my safety rating, oh, my I rating. If you're in a league race, it's a league race. Obviously, it's going to be competitive and you want to do your best. I kind of miss just I don't know if you guys remember it. I can't remember which games had it, but I kind of miss just turning the console on and doing those silly challenges where you had to pass a different car every lap and work your way. I don't remember what the name of it was or whatever, but I think that's missing on PC right now. The only outlet people have for that is the different Heat like DLCs and stuff like that. So, and I think iRace. Oh, just go ahead, Stephen. I'm sorry.
I think actually you might be saying what I was going to say. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
I was just going to mention, and I don't know, again, if there's stats to back this up. I feel like iRacing kind of got invaded by Heat players. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's
better than Roblox players. I'm playing.
Those guys. It's just a lot different mentality. Like when I got iRacing, I was like, this is super serious, and I'm gonna, you know what I mean, and this is a big deal that I'm gonna do iRacing. You know what I mean? I'm gonna sit down and invest this money and this time into it. And when you already kind of have all that stuff because you're doing Heat 5 and you come to iRacing, I'm just saying maybe it'll be a chance for some people to go explore other options. That's all I'm saying.
I guess I was going to go on, and I know it's in the pipeline for iRacing. They've talked about in the development over the next coming years to add a career mode and to add AI racing career mode to iRacing specifically. So that could basically be telling us that NASCAR 25 will not be on PC because iRacing will want to push people towards iRacing that want a similar experience.
That's a really, really good point. I didn't even think of that. That just kind of even more bodes towards my thoughts of it not being on PC.
Right.
It's a good point.
Unfortunately, I don't think it will be, but I'm still hoping for it just for the ease of usability. And I don't want to have to buy it on my Xbox, bring my Xbox out, and use a controller.
Yeah, iRacing has kind of quietly put a lot of work into their AI too. If you go back even, because that's how I used to practice was with AI cars. Back in leagues where there wasn't like the way we do our practices, we have practices on certain nights and guys can get in there and practice, but not all leagues do that. So I would always practice with AI cars and they were terrible. But they've gotten a lot better. So hopefully man, I would love that. I mean, personally, I would love to just sit down and be like, man, I'm just going to knock out 5 races tonight or whatever, you know what I mean? And work through the season, but time will tell, I suppose. I think Steven's probably right with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because, I think I started in 2021 and there was already talk of rain. It took them 3 years from when I even heard about rain for them to implement it. And if they're talking about this career mode now, give them 5 years, okay, maybe. But I wouldn't expect anytime soon to.
Well, they could have left that rain alone for all I'm concerned. Hadn't helped me not once.
Oh man, I don't know. I think the rain's fun,
but it's cool.
It's fun, but God, it stresses me out.
Cole says Xbox Series X and S and PS5. Bomber.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Yeah, I haven't seen anything alluding to it coming to PC. And Steven, that was a really good point. Like it is being developed by iRacing, and
right, they don't want to eat into their own profits on another.
Yeah, they don't want to
console,
but
they don't want to cannibalize the market.
I do know that they own Monster Games, the development company Monster Games, and Monster Games are the people who developed Dirt to Daytona and that career mode. So I feel like we're going to see something similar to that. I would think.
Well, Monster Games has also been developing the Heat games, haven't they?
They did. So they've tried to copy it. They tried to copy it with Heat, but I think with iRacing, at least backing it up and checking it, it will be better off than Who produced Heat? It changed producers. Wasn't like Duesenberry Martin and like 903 Productions or something like that. Like,
Duesenberry did
Yeah.
it. 903 Games did it.
yeah, like,
Um,
and then whoever took over for Ignition took it over. Motorsport Games took it over.
that was
for
Yeah.
Technics did
the Inside Line.
Inside Line,
Yeah, that
and I
kind of
thought
stuff.
Ignition. Maybe not though. Yeah, Technics did Inside Line. I remember that because that I did buy that game and that was broken. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
We will see. Let's see. Anything else? Any other questions y'all have?
Yeah, drivers, we see you're watching. What do you got for
Yeah,
us?
We're 16 people in here.
We're
and there's
we're
only
open.
been
We were
one great
22
question.
max earlier.
And I will
Yeah.
say Sam had a great question, by the way. So I need a question that's going to follow that up.
Yeah, I'm 3 rum and cokes in. I'm an open book.
I guess while we're waiting for any questions to come in, I want to bring up that the Powder Puff podcast and Powder Puff race will be happening next week. The podcast will be on the 30th, which is next Thursday. So we will not be here for the podcast. And yes, our wives will be. Actually, all 3 of our wives and
cannot
Richard's
wait.
wife.
I cannot wait for this, by the way.
I don't know what's going to be more entertaining. Probably for us, I would think the podcast. But
The podcast will 100% be more entertaining. Get your clip machine ready, folks, because it's going to be it's going to be a good time. Yeah, hit that screen record button because it's going to be a good time.
Yeah, so that will be next Thursday, the Powder Puff podcast on this channel at 9 p.m. Eastern. It will start, and then the Powder Puff race will be the following day, next Friday, the 31st at 9 p.m. Eastern, and that is going to be street stocks at Charlotte. I haven't checked the numbers recently. I knew last we were standing around 15 to 17 ladies competing, so I hope the number is still there. I think, Carl, I saw your wife talk about a practice session, or was it Julie or was it Ashley?
They were
Yes,
all
Ashley
talking
and
about
Julie were trying to figure out what would be the best time for some of the girls to get together and get some practice in.
Yes. So
So
if the lady in your life that's racing wants to practice before getting on the track for the first time, because according to my wife, last season during the race, I didn't tell her the rules. So if you want to go over the rules with her during a practice session, you might be saving yourself a headache down the line. But yeah, look forward to that practice session and the race next week. We will be broadcasting the race on this channel as well. More details to come, but look out for that on this channel, and we'll be able to watch our ladies do it and watch them race, and then
at least be on track. We'll see about a race.
my new seat doesn't move back and forth. I'm gonna have to slap some wood blocks on my pedals or something for her. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm sick. For the record, I'm 6'1" and my wife is, I think, 5'4". So there is
you get
a
her like
height,
5-inch lifts or something.
there is a height disparity going on here. So we're gonna have to address that.
Rev says, how old is the number 2 and the number 71? Carl, how old are you?
I'm 34.
Oof. I'm around a bunch of old guys.
Why did Rev not ask how old I am?
Because I think you already
Because you
stated
said you were
your
35.
age.
Yeah.
Or he just knows I'm the oldest and I'm sensitive.
Robert is probably the oldest here. But I am 28.
Oh, this guy.
Steven,
28.
Steven's just a wee baby.
I am just a wee baby. I mean, when we started this, I was 25, it felt like. I mean, 28 doesn't feel as young as it used to be, but we have a lot younger here.
It's the microplastics, makes you feel older.
Sam asks, which one of your wives do you think could finish in the top 20 in a league race? Adam, you said Addison, you are mistaken, buddy.
She did good at Bristol.
Yeah, because she cheated because she didn't know the rules.
Erroneous.
Oh man, I don't know. I will say Gavin's mom last time we did this was really quick.
Yeah, I didn't count Gavin's mom because he asked wife.
I
But-
guess specifically wife.
I don't know. I think if they all have time to practice, I think they'll all do fine. Like once Julie figured out the because everybody has to remember. So one thing a lot of people might not know about Julie is she doesn't drive in real life. She had a seizure disorder as a young adult, and she doesn't drive. We're working on that now, but so that the concept of driving to her is totally foreign. So for her to sit down in this electronic sim rig thing is super bizarre. But when she actually got like the mechanics down, she actually did pretty well. All the wives did. It was fun, man. So if they put in the time, they'll all do fine,
Relatively.
or they'll murder each other, and it'll be glorious.
and it'll be
Either way, it's
awesome.
going to be a show, so don't miss that.
We'll be definitely be clipping pieces of those race. Cautions will be turned off. We'll have admin yellows if needed. And then addition damage will also be off, or I guess damage healing will be on. So you don't have to go in and fix the car, just because there's going to be wrecks, and we don't want someone being taken out just because there's wrecks.
I don't know,
unlike our
guys.
league.
I think they should no fast repairs and penalty ladder for them. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the race might only be 3 laps long, but I mean,
No pressure, no pressure at all.
It would be the quickest broadcast ever.
Robert's
It'd
like,
be
I'll
more
do it.
work
I'll do
putting
that
it up.
broadcast.
Yeah.
It's $100 and I leave when it's done.
5 minutes in. All right, I'm out.
Ashley, you got wrecked lap 1, probably by Addison, who jumped the start.
No, it was Riley.
Oh,
It was Riley. So it
it's
runs
just
in the
limitless.
family.
It's limitless crime.
Oh, more limitless violence.
The Rocket Wolcifers.
Oh, it's a clan of rockets.
Yeah. So, and honestly, if you've never seen these street stocks at Charlotte, think about the cup cars on Daytona. It's very similar. You have to give up a little bit on the throttle on the corner entry to save the tires, but otherwise, you're trying to get the draft. You're trying to get up onto the bumper of the car in front of you. It's gonna be a wild trip, that's for sure.
I think it will be more fun for the girls than Bristol.
Yes,
I hope so.
I think in hindsight, Bristol was a little much for their first time, but I think Charlotte's going to be fun.
Charlotte will be a good time. Bristol might have been a little too much, I guess, but it was with a Mazda MX-5 or whatever, so it was something that was really forgiving.
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
is the best way to say it. Martinsville was an idea, is all I'm gonna say, but probably should not happen.
Honestly, the real life one they did over the winter at Martinsville for the MX-5 was fun to watch.
My vote next year for the Powder Puff race is the COT at Michigan. Just throw them into the deep end.
I was thinking
Good
COT
luck.
at iRacing Super Speedway.
There you go. 230 down the front stretch. 240.
In a weird way, it might be easier than Charlotte street stocks, to be honest.
Maybe, I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, tune in for that, guys, or
paint schemes
look for
too.
that.
I know some drivers probably made their wife or mom or sister or whoever a paint scheme. It's encouraged. Please feel free to make them a fun paint scheme that they want if you have the ability to do so. If you cannot make a paint scheme, reach out to any of us that do make paint schemes. And I'm not saying that they will make one for you, but they might have some free time and a little bit of skill to put into it. So please feel free to go all out with it and make it on the street stock. It's any of those 3 street stock cards that they have now. I'm sure most people just have the free one, but yeah. No more questions. Do we get to go home?
They're questioned out.
I mean, I am home, but I would like, if we're going upstairs, I'm down.
I'm disappointed that
What are you
Sam
disappointed
had
in,
2
buddy?
questions out of the 3 questions we have, and we have 15 people in here right now. I am disappointed in everyone except Sam.
No,
I
go ahead, Carl.
I blame Roblox Racing for the brain rot. I think that's what we got going on here.
You know what? You know what it is, Steven? We're just all so good at podcasting that we've answered all their questions.
Ooh, there you
Maybe
go.
so.
I think that's what happened.
Nick for Pocono race. Oh, that's frightening.
Mildly terrifying.
Okay,
Carl,
okay.
take this
Lewis
away.
and the Ferrari. All right, so I find this really, really weird. Okay,
Or we're going to F1. This is
I guess this has always been a dream of his, which I get. Everyone's wanted to drive for Ferrari, but you're in the twilight years of your career. It's interesting seeing Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time champion, in Scuderia Red. All right, it is really, really freaking weird to see that, and apparently it's gone okay. But it's just I feel like we see this a lot with some of these athletes. Let's look at Brett Favre going from the Packers to the Jets and the Vikings. Didn't do very good. I think the miracle story is Peyton Manning winning the Super Bowl with the Colts, coming back and winning for the Broncos. I feel like this is similar.
best there
You,
ever was.
you don't go from your championship contending Mercedes. Now Ferrari's making steps in the right direction, but now you have a whole new race engineer. You have all new crew. You have all new everything. Everything's different. I think it's a very risky move for Lewis going to Ferrari, especially being, what is he, 35? No offense, Adam, but it's odd to me. It's
I'm not
really
offended.
crazy.
I'm not offended. I'll tell you right now. I'm too old to switch F1 teams.
So yeah, it's gonna be Cole. I think that's gonna be an interesting situation over Ferrari. Now, will Ferrari be another championship contender? Will they be in the top three? That still remains to be said. It remains to be seen. We have Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari. McLaren though came out and dominated too. I don't know. There's too much in the air right now.
Sorry, I don't have anything to add to F1 talk.
Yeah, I mean I don't know, man. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of an elite athlete. You know what I mean? Someone who's literally won the biggest prize in what they do 7 times. It's hard to put yourself in that headspace. But obviously he hasn't had the last couple seasons that he wanted to, and things like that. I think it's just going to be one of those things. He's either going to look like a genius for making this move, and he's going to come out and be super competitive and do really well, or he'll regret it. Because if he doesn't do really, really well, at least my train of thought would be, well, he's raced for Mercedes this whole time. Well, has it been his whole F1 career?
I
Yeah,
want to
right?
say yes, or didn't he? I thought for the first year he ran for McLaren as his reserve or something.
I mean full time.
Full time, then
Mercedes, right?
Man, I want to say this first year or two there was a different team he drove for. I cannot
That's
remember
true.
for the life
Just
because it was
Google
the
it.
silver and red in early 2000s, and I just can't remember that team. And he actually did just turn 40 on January 7th. So, yeah, he's definitely up there in athlete age.
Hamilton drove for McLaren from 07 to 2012.
Oh, see, that's what I thought.
Is that okay? Well, regardless, it's been over a decade in McLaren. He won, I believe, all his championships with McLaren.
Yeah. Mercedes.
Or I meant
Won his
Mercedes.
first
I meant
championship with
Mercedes. Sorry.
McLaren in 2008.
Oh, really?
So we're all at
Allegedly.
Well,
And
this
he
is
is
why
the
this
last
is
McLaren driver to win a championship.
this is why we're not an F1 podcast, guys. But regardless, I would have probably liked to have finished out my career where I had a decade of success. You know what I mean? That would be like to make a NASCAR equivalent. That would be like Gordon switching from Hendrick to Penske. You know what I mean? Once he got it just, I don't know. I don't follow F1 super closely. I follow the highlights every week. The only season I watched actual entire races from was, I think it was 21, when him and Verstappen were literally, it was the last race. It came down to the last race. I did watch that season, but that was because of the battle though. So I don't know. I hope he I don't have a big opinion on it. I just think it's odd that he chose to leave. So I, no, I don't, Robert.
So
So
Ashley does
I'm
have a powder puff question. Do they get to
yeah,
do the meatballs of the week and the picks for the race?
I think I'm confused on the question.
I think she's asking if they do meatballs on our race, if they watch our race and they can choose their meatballs just from the broadcast.
Hey, it's their show.
they can Ashley, you guys can do whatever you want. You
Quite
guys can
literally.
do you guys can do future meatballs of the week. I don't care.
I will
And
be sitting there next to Addison just doing the production side of it. Y'all take it wherever y'all want to go.
you guys can pick winners for your race. You can pick winners for our race. You guys can talk about how much you hate the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't care. You do whatever you want.
Sam asks, any tips for Pocono for those that haven't raced there before? Robert says go fast. I think
Yeah.
he's throwing you for a curveball there, Sam. I know, but probably just patience. You're going to be in a pack of cars, and you don't want to make a move at the wrong time that gets you shuffled back, and you have to claw your way back through it.
It is so easy to lose 5 spots. They're taking a bad pass.
Mm-hmm.
I have some legitimate input that I learned from my last race there. Figure out how to go too wide through turn 2 before the race. So whether that's you and Robert practicing together or whatever, and not just turn 2 for that matter, but even all the corners, but turns 1 and 3, there's more of a traditional approach where you're braking or trail braking and things like that. But turn 2, man, it's a weird turn. And if you don't figure it out before the race, you will get eaten alive there. You will get absolutely destroyed in turn 2 on lap 1 if you are not ready to go in there as fast as you can go in and next to another car. So that's if I was going to give any legitimate tips, figure that out, because turn 2 you will lose, like Carl just said, you can lose 5-10 spots if you go through there wrong. So that is my tips and tricks for Pocono.
And Reb asks a football question.
That
Can Jaden Daniels take the Washington Commanders, also Redskins, to the Super Bowl and win?
Well, I hope so, because I sure
Yeah.
don't want the Eagles to win, and I sure don't want Kansas City to win. So I think at this point, I think I determined that last week. I think I'm a Washington Commanders fan until the end of the season. So
Yeah,
Bills in Washington Super
Bills in
Bowl.
Washington
Send
sounds
it.
great.
the Bills would be a good story too, for sure. I
Just
think
for
for
them to
some
lose it again.
yeah, no kidding. Literally, God, anybody but Kansas City, bro.
Yes. Anybody but Mahomes, I think, is pretty much being chanted anywhere but Kansas.
I saw a funny meme the other day. It was a picture of the United States, and it said who everybody is going for in the Super Bowl, and the entire United States was the Washington Commanders logo, except for Kansas City. It had a Kansas City logo, which is, I think, accurate to kind of sum up everyone's feelings about that whole situation.
Yeah, it'd be a great story for sure. And Jaden Daniels is awesome to watch. So much
Yeah,
fun.
he's a rock star. So
But I think we can.
The only
wrap
other
it
thing I
up.
can think of is just to close out the racing stuff. The actual Rolex 24 is this weekend. Cars are on track. In fact, the MX5 race 1 was earlier this afternoon, and they actually got hit with some rain, so it's some fun little racing in those Miatas on Daytona Road Course. But yeah, the 24 is this weekend. 61 entries. I think that's the most they've ever had at any time. So there's GTP, LMP2, and GTD Pro. In fact, qualifying was earlier today, and there was a little bit of spiciness. There was 2 guys. One messed up turn 6, and they were both trying to qualify. He did not give up the spot, so they were neck and neck almost through the bus stop. Totally messed up both of the qualifying laps, and there was a little bit of a discussion after the fact. So it's already getting a little exciting.
there was a fire. Yeah, big fuel
Yes.
fire at the garage today. It was quite the spectacle from what I've seen photos of. So
Yeah, Richard can confirm there was a good fire at the,
He
I don't know if it
started
was
it.
a refueling station or what, but the photo showed like four bays almost completely burned down. It was crazy.
Yikes! I
Well,
hope that doesn't impact anything.
I hope they give those bays to the Penske drivers in February.
Oh boy, and
But yeah,
the
no, I can't.
24 starts when? Saturday?
It'll be Saturday at 2:30, 3 o'clock Eastern.
Good deal. Yeah,
Peacock you can get 100% of the time, and then it'll alternate between NBC or USA as they usually do. I think the overnight hours they don't cover much, but it's the beginning and I know the end they cover quite a bit.
so if it's cable being NBC or USA, they're not covering all 24 hours?
Not all 24. I think you're gonna get at least half. But if you
Gotcha.
get Peacock, they cut it into 4 different viewerships, 6-hour segments, and you just boom, 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 boom.
I think Peacock will have full 24 axis
Yes.
quote unquote coverage. If they do it like they did, I think it was last year, because back the last couple of years before that, they didn't really have anybody talking. They're like the race was covered and was broadcast, but you didn't
Mm.
really have any commentary or any feedback.
Well, I think there
Um,
was they've done this 2 years in a row, and I'm going to add on that, Adam, because I think what happens is they'll commentate, and then Peacock, since it's a subscription, they just keep there. But if you're not, like say if you're on NBC or USA, they will just say that's their commercial block, and then just leave it. And I have heard them just not say anything for like an hour, so there's that
yeah,
too.
I think Peacock this year is going to have intermittent commentating. So you'll at least know what's
Interesting.
happening. I believe that's what they're doing. So
I don't know. I'm
well,
excited
all
to at
right.
least get some racing on the TV. That's all I can say.
Me too, man. I know Chili Bowl was fun. Been watching some old NASCAR races, but I'm excited for something big event. So
Something on a real track. That's not
big old track,
Please.
big old
Oh,
real,
please.
big old
something
real
that doesn't
racetrack.
take place in Oklahoma.
Nobody likes Oklahoma.
No one does. But all right, well, a big shout out to Robert Moyer for helping us out and producing this today. I know we had some hiccups, and there's going to be some hiccups in these next couple of weeks while we're trying to figure this out. It's just a completely different cadence than we're used to. So that will be resolved in the coming weeks. But everyone here, if you're in the Discord, please give a big shout out to Robert for helping us out and doing this for us. It's really, really needed. It can get difficult at times doing everything, but we thank him. And shout out Freaky Fast Broadcasting as well, Robert's company. They do a great job. So, but yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, of course, as well. Butt Kicker, Leader in Haptics, Sundance Pizza, Ideal Lease, Sundance Trucks, RevSimShop.com, Maddox Graphics, and Advanced GG. The promo code for Advanced GG is WolfXLive10 for 10% off your order, and all those proceeds from that promo code go directly to the league. We thank you guys for watching, and thank you for making this past week a great week racing wise. We look forward to hopefully similar things in the future, and we will catch y'all at Pocono next Tuesday. Carl, sign us out.
Buckle it up.
Buckle it up.
Buckle it up. Or you'll die.
And before we actually go,
oh, false sign off.
False sign off. That is our sign off, but we are going to do our third trivia question of the night.
Oh, shoot.
Steven.
I remembered.
While Steven loads that up, just to kind of piggyback on what he said, I can't thank all of the drivers enough for last week. Not only that, but sticking with us through the season. I know it's been rough. So huge thank you to all the drivers. Thank you to all my admin team for the hours of work that goes into this and trying to brainstorm on how to make things better. And obviously, thank you to all of our partners who have not abandoned us in some tougher times. So thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Adam.
That's all I got.
Pit Stop TV comes in, and we are still live. It was a long one tonight. I'm assuming it's Andrew.
We like to talk, Andrew.
We do like to talk. We're having a good time. You just caught us for our last trivia question, and that is somewhere. Some of y'all might have heard us discussing it before the show technically started, but Hopefully, y'all completely forgot about it since then.
They
And
didn't.
it
You
is-
reminded them.
Who is the oldest driver to win a Cup Series race? Oh man,
Steven, you were right. I guess you never did outright say it.
I did not outright say it.
You would have had to have been paying attention to context clues because I had to read it. I had to read it twice before I answered it.
Oh, man.
Also, I feel like this was a talking point for the broadcast IRL over the last season for some reason.
Maybe. Oh, you know what? I answered too early in the chat. I was watching Robert's feed, not the
You're
YouTube
fine.
feed.
You're fine.
I did that too. That's I just don't touch. No touch.
I didn't realize we had a live feed until 3/4 of the way through the podcast. I've enjoyed being able to see you guys.
I heard the stream noise, but I didn't know, and I didn't double check in Discord.
I think I checked when Robert made a comment about the standings graphic being up or something. I was like, oh shoot, it's over there. So
Boy, oh boy. Let me give another 10 seconds.
do 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 do.
I love watching Jeopardy.
I was gonna say for those too young, that's the Jeopardy music.
Hey, it still goes. Ken
everyone's so
Jennings hosts
old.
it now, and it's the second chance championship right now.
Is it really Jeopardy without Alex Trebek? Like,
They could have done worse. I'll say that.
yeah, they could have.
Yeah, they
Coulda
could have
done
Aaron
worse.
Rodgers.
No. Take it easy, Andrew. Thanks for stopping by.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. We will catch you next Tuesday at Pocono. But all right, our question and our final thing of the night. The answer is Morgan Shepherd. Carl, your fake answers. Well, actually, both of y'all had a fake answer in there. Kale Yarbo and Michael Waltrip are
Caught
just
him off
red
guard
herrings.
there.
Yeah,
Look at that.
Morgan Shepherd is the oldest. I don't know.
Morgan Shepherd, I
Old.
want to say was 67.
My man Ray Silly was
Oh, he was up
114.
there. Morgan, if I knew how to. There we go.
51.
Oh, okay. I wasn't as old.
That is significantly younger than I thought he was.
Yes, but
Man.
he was the oldest to win a 51 in 4 months in 1993, and then the oldest driver to compete. In 2014, he was 72 when he competed in a cup race, and he also holds the record for the oldest driver to start a race in NASCAR's Top 3 series at age 77.
Because he started in Xfinity, didn't he? He made a run or two.
Don't know.
Reb's over here dropping straight
what
knowledge.
series it
So
was.
Morgan Shepherd holds the record for oldest driver to start a race in the Sprint Cup Series race in the 2014 Camping RV Sales 301 at age 72.
That must have been at New Hampshire, because I feel like New Hampshire is the only one that does 301.
That's a good point, Steven. Steven makes a good point.
Context clues. But, well, thank you guys for everything tonight. We will catch you all Tuesday. We're not going to buckle it up again. We already buckled it up. Richard, we miss you. And the ladies will be here next Thursday. But we'll catch y'all later.
All right. Thank you, guys.